All right, Joel, so this is the official ceremony. You could share it up.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Honorable Minister of Education, Ministers of Education across the region joining us online via CXC TV. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of CXC. Dr. Marcia Potter, Deputy Chair of CXC.
Somebody said they click so fast they almost break their hand.
Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO of Radio Education Council. Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education, Guyana. Distinguished council members of the Caribbean Examination Council and the permanent secretaries joining us via CXC TV. Dr. Eduardo Ali, Co-Registrar and Deputy CEO of the Caribbean Examination Council. The executive team, CXC, Chief Education Officers, Principals of tertiary, secondary, and primary schools, local registrar, other local registrars joining us online, teachers, parents, students from across the region, staff of CXC, media representatives and other guests joining us online. Ladies and gentlemen, a special good morning to you. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this most significant occasion and to say how pleased and honored we are in Guyana to have been chosen by the Caribbean Examination Council as the destination to announce this year's results. The effectiveness of education delivery requires a level of vigilance and commitment on the part of all stakeholders.
All right, people, share the link, let everybody know you live.
Never lose focus. Pandemic. While we have our struggles and challenges, we are not a people without hope. Our resilience and fortitude cannot be questioned, as evident in the cases of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who endured the devastating volcano eruption.
You're hearing properly?
Dominica and Barbados, who endured Hurricane Elsa, to be a part of this process today. Chair, we continue to see signs of hope, which suggests that we are moving in the right direction. I'm sure you will hear more on this subject matter when Dr. Manning presents a report and in the question and answer segment. Chair, I'm sure that as a region, we are cognizant of the fact that we are not fully where we are educationally as yet. It is therefore important that we recognize that to develop the education sector, we need to build capacity of our people. There is no shortcut, alternative, or way around it. We must forever seek to develop programs that will cultivate leadership values and skills with our stakeholders, coupled with the creation of authentic relationships, which are necessary ingredients for a true transformation of the education sector. Madam Chair, It is hoped that such a vision will take traction as we endeavor to fight for our children through their empowerment and aiding in the attainment of their dreams. We need now, more than ever, genuine change agents, persons who will place emphasis on accountability of education officers, principals, teachers, parents, emphasis on inclusivity, that is, creating opportunities for every child to fulfill their potential. A focus on the acquisition of resources that will stimulate performance through the use of technology, such as smart classrooms, robotics, and the like. Diagnosing learning difficulties experienced by students and using the right teaching methodologies to address same must be brought sharply into focus. And fourthly, monitoring and evaluating school performance, which must take priority in this dispensation. I wish to encourage parents who might think that their children have not done well, not to be discouraged or to despise them. It was Winston Churchill who espoused that success is never final, failure is never fatal. It is courage that matters. All of us have our strengths and weaknesses, which serve to remind us that we need one another and that we need to work harder as a team to ensure every child fulfills his or her potential in their area of giftedness. I wish to extend sincerest gratitude to those teachers who defied the odds, who went to work with purpose, with a view of producing quality students. I say to you, do not become weary in well-doing, for in due season you will be rewarded. We must keep the wisdom of the Chinese philosopher Confucius burning in our hearts, who said, if you think in terms of a year, plant a seed. If you think in terms of 10 years, plant trees. If you think in terms of 100 years, teach people. Let us continue to teach our children for a better and a prosperous Caribbean. Commendation must also go to those students who did not allow their brain to go into remission, but who were determined to live their dreams amidst adversity. To those parents who render the necessary support to their children, you know that you would have done well, and without you, they would not have done so well. You are champions in your own right. It would be remiss of me, Madam Chair, if I did not recognize the Registrar of CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley, and his team for finding plausible ways in this pandemic to objectively measure and evaluate the performance of our students, thus enabling them or giving them the opportunity to matriculate to universities of their choice. I want to say at this juncture, welcome again to this auspicious event and to the beautiful land of Guyana. Thank you, may God bless you all and the proceedings to follow. Thank you.
See, a steady clap, a steady clap.
Thank you, Dr. Hudson. I'm sure we collectively endorse your view that successful education delivery requires vigilance and partnership from all stakeholders for collective impact. We need to keep building the capacity of our people and forging authentic relationships for true transformation to occur. Now to the proverbial meat of the matter. To report on the examination administration and presentation of results, I invite the erudite Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations. Dr. Nicole Manning joined the staff of the Caribbean Examinations Council on the 1st of February 2020 as Director of Operations, Examination Services. Dr. Manning possesses a Doctor of Education in Organization Leadership from the Nova Southeastern University in Florida, a Master of Science in Computer-Based Management Information Systems.
Morning,
and
everybody.
Bachelor of Science
Please
in
share
Chemistry
this
and
stream.
Management from the
Don't forget to
University
press
of
like,
Mona.
or if you're on Facebook,
She
love
also holds a
and share this
postgraduate
stream
diploma in education from the
so that everyone can
University
get
of
notified.
Technology and a postgraduate certificate in risk management from the Institute of Risk Management in the United Kingdom. Dr. Manning is an industry professional with over 22 years of regional and international managerial experience in diverse industries, from test development and measurement to quality assurance and strategic management. Dr. Manning's extensive experience in the fields of education and assessment have equipped her with the necessary tools to strategically manage the development of examination services, which are delivered by the Examinations Development and Production and Examinations Administration and Security Departments. Welcome, Dr. Manning.
Adapt that way. Oh, there. So I feel we may not get like results specific, but what normally happens is that we get general statistics, pass rate in maths, that kind of thing.
Thank
How
you,
each country
Ms. Benita Waldron Lewis, Director of the National Center for Educational Resource Development and our chairperson today. Honorable Dr. Preo Manikshan, Minister of Education, Ghana, Ministers of Education across the region, joining us online via CXC TV, Professor Sarah Hilary Beckles, Chairman, Caribbean Examinations Council, Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, Vice Chancellor, University of Guyana, Dr. Marcia Potter, Deputy Chair, CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO, CXC, Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education Guyana, and other distinguished council members of CXC joining via CXC TV. Other permanent secretaries joining online, Dr. Marcel Hudson, Chief Education Officer, and other CEOs joining us online. CXC executive staff, Ministry of Education officials from across the region, including CXC local registrars, teachers, parents, guardians, and students. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So this morning, we'll be looking at the examination, administration, and presentation of results. For 2021, we had 2 sittings of examinations, June, July 2021, administered to the region as a whole, and we also had a sitting for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines cohort. Of course, you would have been aware that they would have been affected not only by COVID-19, but in addition to the volcanic eruption that they would have experienced. And so the Caribbean Examinations Council prepared specially for them. So the discussion today and the presentation will only surround the examination administered to the region for June, July, and the results that will be released tomorrow to teachers and parents and students as a whole. So in doing this presentation, I would like to firstly contextualize what happened in 2021. Firstly, I would like to note that we had a reduction in SBA requirements by as much as 50% in some instances. Secondly, we reduced the requirements for specific subjects given COVID-19, and specifically I'm speaking about the modern languages. So we had to give particular consideration for that. Thirdly, we also delayed examinations, by 6 weeks, and further, we would have delayed the submission of the SBAs by another 6 weeks, also by 6 weeks, my apologies. We also had a new level of flexibility, and I know this was particularly appreciated by our local registrars and our centers in relation to the on-site moderation that is usually done for our science and more physically related subjects, and that would have been extended to the 31st of July. In addition to that, we would have released topics to candidates for paper 2, 5 weeks in advance of the examinations that were administered in June, July. And for the first time, we would have introduced a facility known as a deferral to candidates who may not have felt that they were ready to sit exams in 2021. And this, they had the opportunity to defer all the subjects they were registered for or some. And they could have done it over 2 periods, January 2022 for sitting, as well as June 2022. In addition to that, we also extended an opportunity for these candidates to give proper consideration to their selection, and so we gave a further extension for them to go through this particular process. Last but not least, we also would have indicated to them that we're giving them an opportunity, and again for the first time, to accept SBAs in January 2022. So this opportunity is given to our deferred candidates who would have been registered for examinations in 2021. So that gives a good context of what we would have done and what would have taken place prior to the administration of the 2021 examinations for the region. So in moving and looking at particularly the CAPE, our Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, and the Caribbean Secondary Examination Certificate, to give you an idea of thinking this thing is okay.
So struggling with the slides here.
My apologies.
She just now gave you a
Just
sneak
to
peek of
give
what is
some
to come.
information regarding the registration summary for CAPE. I'll start with that. So we did see a reduction both in candidate entries as well as subject entries. And this would have been our lowest cohort for the last 4 years. We saw where we had a reduction of, for candidate entries, as much as 27,750. That would have been the number of candidate entries we would have had. And for subject entries, 110,020. Now, another significant note is our absentees. It's the highest we have had in 4 years, 8.83%. And I want us to remember that this group would have registered, not necessarily deferred, but would have decided not to attend the examination. For CSEC, we saw a reduction likewise, and that reduction we had resulted in 103,445 candidates sitting examinations this year and 502,859 subject entries for CSEC.
So you all are just making note of some of these
Likewise,
statistics.
similarly, I should say, as we had it for CAPE, we had a large number of absenteeism, 11.23%.
That's a high percent.
Now, significant to
11.23.
note, however, and this is important,
That's like
that
1 in every
our
10 person
overall
didn't go and write the
class,
exam.
we had 1,251 subject entries, deferral for 1,251 subject entries for CAPE, and 15,179 for CSEC. Notably, for January 2022, we already have 4,179 subject entries, indicating that that's when the examination will be done. And we would have had 7,720 subject entries deferred to June 2022. We are still awaiting selection from 3,280 or 3,280 of our subject entries. But as registration closes on November 5th, 2021, they do have time. And so the Caribbean Examinations Council has given them that further opportunity to select which sitting they would like to do their examination.
Shania was one. I did referral. She said I was one. Anybody
Now,
here
for the
doctor
Caribbean
exam didn't show up for an exam?
Certificate of secondary level competence, we also saw a reduction in the number of candidate entries as well as subject entry. Well, candidate entries, but an increase in the subject entries. So for the candidate entries increase, it was 9,443, and for the subject entries, a low of 10,811. This year, for the first time, we would have introduced our digital literacy, and that may have accounted for some of this increase you're seeing there. The absenteeism, likewise, while it would not have been as low as 2020, it was still higher, than 2018 and 2019. So we had a 19.8% absenteeism. For our Caribbean vocational qualification, we had a reduction in the number of candidates totaling 2,669 candidates across 36 occupational areas.
So the whole dip.
For the Caribbean primary exit assessment.
This is not CXC sec or CAPE. This is the primary exit exam.
We also saw a reduction of 4,000 to 4,987 over last year's 5,024. Significant to note, though, this is actually an increase from 2018 and 2019. So that gives you a synopsis of our registration of our full suite of examinations from the primary level right up to our Caribbean Advanced Proficiency examinations. Having shared that with you, I would like to now share the administration challenges, a few that we would have experienced.
Jared says you should put on a key.
And firstly, of course, the pandemic is still with us, so we had to grapple with that. But I must say that we rose to the challenge and we were able to facilitate all the various candidates, whether they were stranded in a particular country outside of the territory, the region itself, or they were not able to sit, as I mentioned in the deferral, or they would have been able to sit with St. Vincent and the Grenadines cohort. And that's very important to note, because for the first time, they would have had a second option. The volcanic eruption in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as Tropical Storm Elsa. So for the second time, last year we had a visit from Storm, and we had it again this year, but we were again able to rise to that challenge. So regarding the tropical storm impact, as I would have already discussed and mentioned what we would have done for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines cohort, we had cancellation of, postponement really, of the examinations for St. Lucia, Dominica, and Barbados. Now, the cancellation would have been at the local level, where the decision would have been made just to make sure we protect life, and otherwise the government would have made that decision to cancel the exams. But CXC was able to facilitate these candidates, and the examinations were rescheduled and administered in the second sitting for St. Vincent and the Grenadines cohort. So none of these candidates would have been affected. I must note, however, that the results for these candidates who would have sat the exams with the St. Vincent and Grenadines cohort will also be released with the St. Vincent and Grenadines cohort, and that would have been communicated to all ministries of education concerned. Now, as an examination body, and as a big part of our 2021-2025 strategic plan, we are trying as best as possible with and working with our ministries of education across the region to increase electronic testing. This is just one component of 7 components for the full transformation, digital transformation that the region so desperately needs to see. So we started by training and continuing, I should say, training of ministry officials and chief invigilators. What would have been different this year is in the past, we would have had a dedicated period for the training of ministry officials, center administrators, and chief invigilators for the management of electronic testing. For the first time this year, given the increased utilization indication by the territories in wanting to use electronic testing, that modality, we actually responded to centers even at very, very short notice. And this was commendable on the center's part, the local registrar's part, and the Ministry of Education's part. And so CXC wanted to make sure that they did not lose that opportunity. However, there are challenges that were experienced with internet access, power outages, and of the incorrect version of the secure browser. However, CXC worked with the centers and no candidate would have been affected negatively. For electronic testing this year, we saw an increase in usage of this facility for CAPE by 27% and for CSEC by as much as 84%, and this is very good. For the CCSLC, however, we saw a reduction in the utilization of this modality by 21%. Now, importantly, would have been the school-based assessments. And just to note, prior to the administration of examinations, as CXC would have promised as a part of the outcomes from the independent review team that we had last year, that we would have reached out to teachers to have special sessions for them per subject regarding the school-based assessments. Now we are expecting to see a greater return on this investment for 2022 for the 2022 cohort, but I am sure that we would have had an impact for 2021. We also provided, outside of the 6 weeks extension that I reported earlier, we also gave further extensions to territories past every time just to ensure that candidates were given this opportunity to submit their school-based assessments. We also will continue to have these interventions and work with our educational system across the region for improvement in this particular area. I must, however, note that for 2021, so you may have had over 110,000 candidate entries, for the CAPE, but what must be noted is that of that group, we had only 94.6%, well, not only, we had 94.6% submitting their SBAs, 94.6% we have submission. Now, while it may look a little lower than previous years, I must note 2 things. One, the number we do have, and still we're working with the local registrars, we do have a few SBA scores missing. Now, this is not so much an alarm for the Caribbean Examinations Council at this time, because we are getting good responses from our local registrars and the ministries of education. However, that 4,839 that you're seeing there, representing 5% of the school-based assessments not submitted to teachers. So I want to note that this is an important figure for planning and for improvement as we go forward, that the analysis be done for a good understanding as to why we would not have had 4,839 subject entries. We would not have had that submission to the Caribbean exam.
What? What she just said there?
Well, not only to the
Missing
Caribbean
SBAs?
to teachers. Because
4,000?
What this is saying to us is that we did have candidates who would not have been able to complete and submit to their teachers. For CAPE, likewise, we had a reduction in the number of percentage SBA records submitted. But again, what is more concerning is the candidates who would not have submitted the SBAs to teachers. So you may have different situations, we would not know why, but that is showing a 31,270 candidates who would not have submitted to their teachers.
She's saying 31,000.
Very heartening, and what is very good is that we would have gotten.
We want to see the board. We want to see the presentation. They're only showing us the woman.
And that's very good.
I need to pull back and hear that sometime.
What is also very important
Joseph got it.
Is, as the Caribbean Examinations Council has always done in the past, we would have done for quality assurance purposes, we look at what's called irregularities. And for looking at the psychosocial component, where candidates may have different issues as they approach the time for sitting examinations. And
that's a high number of missing SBAs.
Hardships. Now, for this
I need to hear about that, because if she said 30-something thousand people didn't submit SBAs,
an increase in both irregularities and hardships.
That is insane.
So, 400% increase. If I use the numbers, it may not be so alarming. 10. CSEC, 100% increase. And this is where we're looking at things like utilization of cellular phones in the exams and so on. And so I'll even take this opportunity to encourage our candidates to make sure that you do not take your cellular phones in the examination, among other things. So these are more irregularities. What I really want to focus on are the hardships. And what is very important to note is that we would have dealt with all of these hardships. Now, hardships come in different forms.
Show me the screen.
Especially given COVID-19, we would have attributed the 78% increase for CAPE and 638% increase for CSEC. We would have attributed this to a lot and seen a lot of this because of COVID-19. Some of it is directly affected the candidates, and some of it affected their parents. It is with deep regret and even condolences to the families that would have been affected by COVID-19. The Caribbean Examinations Council, we want to extend condolences because we did see a lot of reports coming in because of even death of parents and guardians. So we took this into consideration, and none of these candidates would have been disadvantaged. We made sure that we took care of that. So
that could never be correct. That figure, she misread that. It could never have 30-something thousand missing SBAs
this year
on an end Cape. That's madness. It's 3,000 or something.
All right.
She really changing up screen here, and we can see no screen. Show me the screen. Somebody need
to be starting with
to tell them to show you the screen. Right?
So as you're aware, we have a 7-tier grading system for CAPE.
This was this even worse what they switched to. You see the whole panel now.
Excellence in terms of grasping principles, concepts, and skills. To grade 7, showing very limited grasp of principles, concepts, and skills.
I would love to see the statistics on this. But they're just showing us how
and the
token.
Ministries of Education to plan.
I hope they grade in the cameraman and give them a CXC
improvement
result too.
strategies along the year. So for the CAPE results,
Come on,
I
screen.
will begin with the overall comparison of Guyana against the rest of the region. And I must say that overall, Guyana's performance was marginally higher compared with the rest of the region.
Big up Guyana. Same way, same how.
Notably, we
But
had
this is a normal
16
thing.
units in particular in which 100% of candidates for Guyana received acceptable grades 1 to 5. So we deserve a clap there too. Yes.
5. Okay.
For Caribbean studies, 95% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021, when compared to 98% receiving acceptable grades in 2020 and 97 for 2019 and 2018. Guyana's performance would have been lower compared to the rest of the region, and you would have attained a 92% acceptable grades compared to the region's 95, as I mentioned.
Show me the
before.
screen, show me the screen, show me the
I
screen.
must note that 14% of the candidates attained grade 1 in 2021 when compared to 27% in 2022. For CAPE communication studies, we had 93% of the candidates across the region attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021 when compared to 96% in 2019 and 2020 and 97% in 2018. However, I must note for this, Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region. In fact, 97% attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to the region's 93%. The percentage of candidates attaining grade 1 remained relatively consistent when compared to 2020, but saw an increase when compared to 2018 and 2019. Sociology, Unit 1. Approximately 90% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021, when compared to 93% in 2020 and 91% in 2019. Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region, attaining a 96% acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to the region's 90%. For Sociology Unit 2, 94% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021 when compared to 97% in 2020. Guyana's performance was again better when compared with the region, attaining 96% acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to the region's 94%.
Guyana just shelling me down here.
For Law, Unit 1, the performance of candidates in 2021 was relatively consistent with previous years. 89% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021, compared to the same percentage we would have had in 2020. Notably, Guyana's performance was again better.
Well, they wouldn't really talk about any other countries because the presentation happened in Guyana.
Attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to the region's 89%.
No. Stay on the screen.
Law, Unit 2.
Nice.
For Law, Unit 2, the performance of candidates in 2021 declined over period 2019 to 2021, but was consistent with 2018. Approximately 87% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021 when compared to 90% in 2020. Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region, 96% attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to a regional 86%. For Law Unit 2 also, the percentage of candidates attaining grade 1 increased by as much as 10% over 2020. For integrated mathematics, we saw a general increase over 2019, and 2018, a slight reduction in 2021 over 2020. However, Guyana's performance was again better when compared with the region. 80% attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to a regional 64%. For Mathematics Unit 1, performance of candidates in 2021 increased when compared to 2020. 73% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021, when compared to a 72% in 2020. However, Guyana's performance was lower when compared with the region, 59% attaining acceptable grades compared to the regional's 73% as reported. The percentage of candidates attaining grade 1 increased significantly over the 4-year period, realizing the highest in the last 4 years, where as much as 32% of our candidates attained grade 1 in 2021. For Pure Mathematics Unit 2, 80% of candidates attained acceptable grades.
Slides man and doing the work. We still have integrated maths on this slide.
87% in 2020. The percentage of candidates attaining grade 1 saw a reduction when compared to 2020, but remained stable when compared to 2018. 26% of candidates attained grade 1 in 2021. Guyana's performance was lower when compared to the region. 75% attained acceptable grades 1 to 5 compared to a regional 80%. For Chemistry Unit 1, we had an increase.
Can't forget to change the slide, yes? Well, you can just see writing it up again.
2021 period, where we saw 92% of the approximately of candidates attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021, when compared to 88% in 2020. Guyana's performance was a bit low when compared to the region, 84% attaining acceptable grades when compared to a regional 90.
I don't like how they're saying grades 1 to 5. Yeah.
However, for the Chemistry Unit 2, we saw the performance of the candidates better than previous years again. 95% attained.
But I mean, with the graph they give us here, we can work it out.
When compared to 92%
but it takes some
in
time.
2020.
But they should, nobody really care about grade 5 and keep.
With that of the region, 95% attaining acceptable grades compared to the regional 95%.
They say that grade 5 acceptable and keep, but nobody really accepting no
For
grade 5.
Biology Unit 1, the performance of candidates in 2021 remained relatively consistent when compared to 2020 and 2019, but increased when compared to 2018. 90% of candidates attained grades 1 to 5, acceptable grades 1 to 5 in 2021 when compared to 2018, 88% and 91% 2019. Guyana's performance was consistent with that of the region again, attaining the 90% similar to that 95%. Sorry,
Yeah, now these comments are
similar-
some in stitches sometimes.
No, 90%. I'm looking at biology. Similar to that of the region. My apologies. For Unit 2, the performance of candidates in 2021 was relatively consistent with previous years. And we saw a 94% of candidates attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 when compared to previous years. Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region, 97% attaining acceptable grades 1 to 5 when compared to the regional 94%. So overall for Cape, as I previously said, that Guyana performed much better than the region, marginally better than the region.
Is it for Cape Day?
For CSEC,
Yes, man.
our sixth scale grading system, grade 1 showing the comprehensive grasp of concepts, knowledge, skills, and competences, and grade 6 shows very limited grasp of concepts, knowledge, skills, and competences. For English A, the performance of candidates in 2021 showed a decline when compared to 2019 and 2020. However, an increase when compared to 2018. The regional performance would have been 74%. Guyana's performance was lower when compared to the region, 68% attaining acceptable grades when compared to a regional 74%.
Oh, this somebody that write in the chat already.
For English B,
Chicken curry.
at this point, and I'm gonna, well, let me just say that at the end. We had for the region a
Now keep in mind
an
all these
overall decline
percentages and
of
passes.
50, resulting in 61% for the region for English B, while we would have had, in comparison to previous years,
Mean kind of nothing, because them could
an
gerrymander
additional
the grades how they
also
want
decline,
by just
sorry,
shifting the
of
percent
grade
boundaries.
1s for English B. 9% of candidates attaining grade 1 in 2021 when compared to 2020 of 19%.
Oh gosh, dreamstick. But them could gerrymander the grades with the grade boundaries now. So the grades is not really important. What we really care about is percentages, but CXC don't give the percentage of the exam. Like in the exam.
Continue. For integrated science,
Switch the
the
slides.
performance of candidates in 2021 would have seen an improvement over 2019 and 2018 and a slight reduction over 2020. 66% of our candidates attained an acceptable grades 1 to 3 in 2021 when compared to previous years, 62% for 2019 and 18. As I said, 2021 was actually better for those years. I want to pause to remind us that the 2021 year is similar to 2019 and 2018. So that's why I will be making a lot of reference to 2019 and 2018, because those would have been the years when we would have administered all 3 papers. So again, Guyana performed better in CSEC integrated science when compared to the region, seeing a 69% attaining acceptable grades compared to 66%.
Even Tanti know.
Yes, that's
when they put the 3 papers is a most
Apologies.
is a better thing. I should just now kind of say that just now.
Likewise, for biology,
Tanti, I
the
spray that mic
performance
when
of
you're done.
candidates in 2021 remained relatively consistent in comparison to previous years. 89% of our candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 3 in 2021 when compared to our previous years, of approximately 90 to 91%. Notably, Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region. 93% attained acceptable grades compared to a regional 89%. Sorry, things jumping before me.
Or dance.
Okay.
We know these
So
slides.
for chemistry, the performance of candidates when compared to 2020 and 2019 declined slightly but had an improvement over 2018. Guyana's performance was lower when compared with the region, slightly, 61%, attaining acceptable grades when compared to the regional 63%. For CSEC chemistry, physics, sorry, my apologies, the performance of candidates in 2021 declined when compared to previous years. 66% of candidates attained acceptable grades 1 to 3. When compared to 2019, 73% and 69% in 2018. Guyana's performance was lower when compared with the region, 62% attaining acceptable grades compared to a regional 66%. For CSEC math, I'm going to pause here also because I want to note that while
Hey, maths boy.
we would have presented this, we would have had some increase in the performance.
You mean there was
increase in the performance?
Well, it was organizing the grades.
CSEC mathematics for Guyana. So we will have to revisit that, Minister, because this has really changed. I must say, apologies, we would have had an improvement in CSEC mathematics for Guyana. So we will make that public change. Generally, however, we are seeing a decline over previous years for CSEC mathematics, but for the grade ones, I must say that we had a fluctuation. So when we compare to 2019, candidates got
what
more
accent
grade
is
ones
this, Dr.
this
Nicole
year,
Manning?
but when compared to 2018, you had a 2% reduction. So 9% this year, 11% in 2018, and 8% in 2019. For the electronic document preparation and management, EDPM, popular as it is more commonly known, we saw the region performing at 87%, attaining acceptable grades 1 to 3. And we saw Guyana performing better when compared to the
I don't ever
region,
realize, but I have a
attaining
mistake in this slide here now. For CSEC, it's supposed to be 1 to 3, not 1 to 5. And there are 1 to 5 in all of these slides. So, problems in the dance.
Again, for human and social biology, we saw
but 32% of the persons pass maths.
Improvement when compared to previous years.
No, 41%.
8% of candidates attained acceptable
41% of people in CSEC pass
2021, when compared to 52% in 2020 and 64% in 2018. Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region. 77% attained acceptable grades 1 to 3, compared to a regional 68%. That's a significant jump. For principles of business, performance of candidates declined over previous years. Regional performance would have been 79% in comparison to 2018 and 2019.
Somebody get the doctor some water.
Where we had an 82% and an 86% performance, respectively. Guyana's performance was slightly low, attaining a 75% performance against the region's 79% in comparison, I should say.
Yeah, I'm eating.
For social studies, we saw a slight decline generally for both the region as well as for Guyana. However, it was 54% for the region and 53% for Guyana. Information technology.
Moving backwards.
Information technology, the performance of candidates generally remained consistent across the region, where we saw 89% of the candidates attaining acceptable grades 1 to 3 in 2021, when compared to 2020, 90% and 91% and 92% for 2018 and 2019 respectively. However, Guyana's performance was better when compared with the region. 93% attained acceptable grades in comparison to the region's 89%, an actual 5% increase over more than the region.
Hey, they really went and bring the
In
water.
addition,
They're listening to my streamer.
sorry. Office administration, my apologies. The performance of candidates in 2021
Or was it just people?
showed a decline in over previous years. However, Guyana's performance was better than the 79% for the region, as Guyana attained 80% acceptable grades 1 to 3 against the region's 79%. So overall, again, for CXC, similarly to Cape, Guyana's performance would have been better than the region. For the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, July 2021 session, firstly to note that the award is done against mastery, competence, and developing competence. So to note that performance across the region for CCSLC, we saw for the English, we saw 2,046 candidates would have had the acceptable performance against 3,960 for English, a reduction for the mathematics, increase in mathematics over 2020 period, as well as an increase in social studies and a stable performance for integrated science. French would have seen an increase up to 121 and Spanish 151. As I said before, digital literacy, it is the first time, and so that performance you would not have had a comparison there. For the
What you mean, man? Some of these stats real.
Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, comparative over previous years, we saw an increase in the language, mathematics saw a slight decline, while the science and social studies, we saw an increase across the region in performance.
This is CP, yeah?
Notably,
We really concerned about the primary.
when we compare the average performance specifically for the language, it would have been 65.84% against the 2020, my apologies.
See how they know to get percentage for the CPEA exam, but they don't know how to find the percentage for BC second keep exam.
49.1%.
We want to see percentages.
2021 for the region against a 50.59.
By the way, this is supposed to go all the way up to 100. They stop at 70 to make it look good.
Science and social studies, it would have been 65.3%.
But I mean,
for 2021, over 63.88%, as well as a 62.74% increase performance over the 62% for CPA social studies. For the Caribbean Vocational Qualification 2021, the most popular occupational areas we would have seen this year, starting from electrical installation, commercial food preparation, as well as we would have seen some increase for data operations, metalwork engineering, as well as crop production. I must note, however, for the Caribbean vocational qualifications that we are seeing a reduction at this time, it is showing a reduction in terms of the persons receiving full qualifications. And I must pause here.
CBQ.
The Caribbean vocational qualification is very influenced by performance in terms of the person's competence in what they can do, skills. And so we would have seen a reduction in the number of candidates performing because as a result of COVID-19, you can well imagine it's not so controlled. But it's a very important area for the region. And so the Caribbean Examinations Council will continue to work with the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities, as well as our territories, local registrars and ministries of education to see the improvement as is required for this particular area. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings my presentation to an end.
But as I said, these were grades. What we really want is percentages. CXC need to step away from just giving grades and giving percentages as well.
Thank you, Dr. Manning, for such a focused and edifying presentation. CXC is truly committed to accommodating students' desire to sit these exams, regardless of the challenges and hardships they face. We celebrate and look forward to the future of testing by having them done electronically. And congratulations to our Guyanese students who showed their resilience and ability to shine brilliantly even in this darkest time. That's it.
Guyana.
So moving our program along, to bring remarks, please help me to warmly welcome the learned registrar and CEO of CXC. Dr. Wayne Wesley was appointed as the 7th registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Examinations Council in August 2019. He previously held the position of Director of Operations, Examination Services. Dr. Wesley has spent the last 25 years in both education and training, regionally and internationally. His professional experience spans industrial engineering, technical education, strategic leadership, and executive management. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Industrial Engineering from Florida State University and has successfully completed executive education programs in innovation and advanced management at Harvard and Manchester Business School, respectively. Dr. Wesley is also a Fulbright Scholar, a Chartered Manager and Fellow of the Chartered Management Institute of the United Kingdom, and a Fellow of the American Society for Quality. Dr. Wesley?
Dr. Wesley, it's in the gym, boy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms.
This man's voice is giving some people PTSD.
The National Center for Education and Resource Development and chairperson of today's session, the Honorable Dr. Priya Manikchan, Minister of Education, Guyana, Ministers of Education across the region, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Dr. Marcia Potter, Deputy Chair of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Guyana, permanent secretaries across the region, distinguished council members of the Caribbean Examinations Council, Dr. Eduardo Ali, Pro Registrar and Deputy CEO of CXC, Dr. Nicole Manning, our Director of Operations at CXC, the executive team, Dr. Marcel Hudson, Chief Education Officer.
So what Robert's
as
saying
well
here
as
is
the Chief
vital
Education
because
Officer
the
across
grades,
region,
they could just shift the grade boundaries to get
Mr.
whatever they
Amir
want
Ali,
in the
Assistant
statistics,
Chief Education Officer from the Caribbean,
as was the
Ministerial
case with the
Education
multiple
Diana.
choice scenario.
Ms. Saudia Kadir Grant, our local registrar.
So what we really
here
need is
in
percentage,
Ghana.
unless we can see the percentage year by year,
Mr.
like what's the average
Assad.
percent of what
Right.
people do,
Stand up, young man.
then
I am pleased. Yes.
then it's
Mr.
making
Prasad,
sense now.
the most outstanding candidate for CSET 2020. We were unable last year to have a face-to-face event. And I tell you, even now speaking, I'm getting goosebumps to be in his presence. I mean, he has done remarkably well. And to learn today that you want to be an engineer like myself, even give me greater honors to be associated with you. And I'm quite sure that with your kind of attitude and desire and determination, you will succeed. So I know the discipline of engineering is in good hands. Thank you very much, Mr. Prasad. Teachers, parents, and students from across the region, media representatives, and other guests joining online, good morning. On behalf of the Caribbean Examinations Council, I would like to thank the Ministry of Education of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana for hosting the official release of results ceremony for 2021 June-July examinations. We are particularly pleased to have the opportunity to be here in person to experience the warm hospitality of the people of Guyana. And I want to say that the persons we have been interacting with, they have been warm, Minister. They have been taking care of us, the persons you have assigned to us, and they appreciate the hospitality that they are giving to us. And we know that now, Mr. Ali, I need to extend my stay for a little longer because there's so much in Guyana that we need to appreciate. And I'm quite sure that the Honorable Minister will make sure that that happens. But certainly, today's ceremony signifies the commitment of the Caribbean Examinations Council to advance the regional despite the unprecedented challenges. The challenges, though formidable, were not insurmountable. We also recognize that this function represents a period of great anticipation, not only for the candidates, but also parents, guardians, and teachers. I want to assure you that we understood the impact that COVID-19 would have on performance. Therefore, our deliberations during the marking and grading processes gave full consideration to ensure that candidates were not disadvantaged while ensuring the integrity of the examination process. Over the last 2 years, the capability and capacity of all normative systems were and continue to be tested, revealing the inadequacies and vulnerabilities within the regional education system. Therefore, the emerging imperative for member states is the development of a greater level of resilience in the education sector. This, at the very least, requires a robust and sustainable transformation of our development infrastructure and operational systems to become responsive and agile. While the emerging narrative is to build back stronger, I dare to say at this point that it is more than just building back stronger. It is building back sustainably. To build back better or stronger suggests rebuilding the same structures and systems that would have failed to cope with the challenges of the global pandemic. Therefore, the approach to the rebuilding efforts is to build back sustainably through innovative transformation. This connotes a rebuilding effort that is geared towards resilience, operational flexibility, and governance, integrity, and accountability. The aim of which is to have universal access and universal quality. We need right across the Caribbean to produce a lot of Mr. Prasad. Right across the region. Universal access, universal quality. Universal access to quality and relevant education. And in that context, we would not have to be worrying about how we prepare students and giving extra lessons all over the place. We would worry about ensuring that students demonstrate the requisite competencies to perform in society. Within the regional construct, the transformation processes of teaching, learning, and assessment have emerged as a common platform for regional discourse in terms of cooperation, collaboration for development, and the preservation of standards. The Caribbean Examinations Council is by no means immune to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. In recognition of this, CXC is now implementing a new 5-year strategic plan for the period 2021-2025. The vision is to create a digitally transformed enterprise, providing quality, relevant, and globally recognized educational services. To this end, the strategic plan represents a structured system of transformation to include research and development. No longer should we be making plans and operating in a vacuum. Artificial intelligence, digitalization of systems, and an inclusive decision-making framework. We don't want to return to what we saw last year with the region making a lot of queries and concerns because of a lack of communication and understanding of the process. Certainly, Guyana started a process that really came home to us that we really need to be a bit more inclusive in our decision-making framework and incorporating critical stakeholders, students. We came here yesterday and we made sure to have an interactive session with students from Queen's College and Richmond Ishmael School this week, because we want to hear what students have to say, because after all, we are here to serve them. And that is what we intend on doing. The 3 dimensions of the educational system critical to CXC examinations: teaching, learning, and assessment, with the latter being more pertinent to us. From a standards perspective, our syllabuses are used as the content, scope, and sequence for teaching, the objectives for subject matter learning, and the performance criteria for assessment. However, the new reality requires that we reimagine and rethink educational assessment. In this regard, the current thinking around the development of examinations is to have a greater focus on the appropriate balance between critical competencies and content coverage. With the rapid expansion in information and communication technologies, access to content and a wider range of information is more attainable. Consequently, the emerging approach is to consider the critical competencies required for individuals to function effectively in society. I don't know why we can't have a curriculum that allows students to complete what they need to know in the 4 years the Ministry of Education would have established for students to learn. We have a attitude now for a lot of extra lessons. We are pressuring the students, giving them a lot of information overload, and when they're stressed out, we wonder what is happening. We need to find an approach that creates an appropriate balance that allows students to demonstrate the critical competencies required to function in society and have that ability to apply to any content, rather than focusing on the syllabus coverage. What this pandemic has shown us is that you will at times not have the time to cover the entire content. But we should have been equipping students with the critical competencies that can be applied to any content.
This man really want to come and attack teachers, yeah, boy?
A lot of the things we are learning, a matter of fact, what we learned
You
in
not
school
really
no longer applies now. We have to be getting on Google and keeping abreast of the new changes in technology to be effective. How are we doing that? We are doing that because
this man trying to say Caribbean teachers in handling the stories.
Not necessarily knowledge, the foundational skills and competencies that would equip you, that would have equipped us with the capabilities.
And he's shouting on it, so that's a touchy issue for him.
And that's where we need to go.
Okay, bro.
The core competencies would develop the capability and capacity within students to learn and master any relevant content. These schools of thought have implications not only on the development of our syllabuses going forward, but also on the construct of our examination. As it relates to assessment, focus will be on core competencies to be examined rather than content coverage. So to conclude my remarks, the COVID-19 experience has served to highlight several weaknesses in the regional educational system and points to the urgent need to reorient our approach for its sustainable development. It is important to note that digital transformation of our education system is only an enabler for operational flexibility, not the panacea. It cannot solve everything. Other interventions dealing with the psychosocial interventions are also critical. The overall lesson learned from COVID-19 is the awakening of the collective consciousness at the governance, leadership, operational, and functional levels of the inadequacies of our normative systems, and the awareness of the need to collectively reimagine and rethink the development of a more inclusive, reimagine and rethink the development of a more inclusive and resilient socio-economic system of development. It is within this resilient environment that the critical function of developing the human capital through teaching, learning, and assessment will continue without disruption. Critical to this response is the preservation of examinations integrity to instill confidence and trust in the certification issued to validate.
Who tell me this man going and tell me what time to go and check the grades and things?
Is committed to the region and committed to the innovative transformation of the educational system.
Last time I think they did a breakdown on how
teaching,
some kind of country thing they do, like Guyana check in the morning, this one check, then this one check, then that one check.
Level of research and innovation, data that will drive informed decision making to advance the regional human capacity development. We need all our students to be like Mr. Rashad. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time.
Dr. Wesley, thank you for seeing the shortfalls of our examination system as opportunity to build back sustainably and not just stronger and better. We agree with your charge that universal access to quality and relevant education is the mandate to develop competent citizens. We look forward to seeing CXC's strategic plan made manifest within the next 5 years. Through reimagining and rethinking assessment and striking the balance between critical competencies and content coverage. And lastly, that the expression of student competencies should become our collective focus rather than the ability to regurgitate or synthesize content knowledge alone in order to build our human capital. Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
Let's talk.
Our featured speaker,
The largest
is a
universal
true
access
daughter
for
of this
students
soil.
is YouTube.
One who gives tirelessly and unceasingly
And I know
of
most
herself
of the Caribbean
to create
teachers that
the
teach
ideal education
freely
sector
on YouTube
that will
and
deliver on the
on
2030
television.
commitments that speak to barrier-free
And CXC
equitable
don't reach out to them.
access
So they just
quality
stop.
education for all Guyans.
That's the biggest way to get free
Dr. Priya
universal
Devi
access.
Manichan, over the course
Instead
of
of
her
that,
career in public
CXC
life, first as Minister of Human Services and Social Security in 2006,
CXC throw the law
and
at me.
now twice the Minister of Education, has been a champion proponent for and defender of the rights of women and children. Some of her most notable accomplishments emanating from this cumulative decade in public life are the establishment of Guyana's Child Care and Protection Agency, development of a policy on domestic violence, and piloted laws in the Parliament relating to the care, development, and protection of children. Initiation of a countrywide campaign to stamp out sexual violence. Decentralization of legal aid services from the capital cities, and expanded it to 6 of Guyana's 10 regions, making access to justice for Guyana's vulnerable a reality. Collaboration with the private sector on a loan program that provides low interest and collateral-free loans to single-parent women.
Someone in the chat say all you want is the time. Mighty Jesus.
Women at work.
I'm not saying the things that people want.
Implementation of the country's first cash grant program for all parents. Publication of local textbooks to avoid the unaffordable heavy costs associated with purchasing foreign books.
CXC so out of touch,
Initiation of
that's
the
the main
Commonwealth
problem.
Learning
They're out of
Coursera
touch.
program workforce recovery
They come and say
initiative
things like they're trying to
with
talk to
Guyana,
everybody, and then they
leading
say
the
real
with
out of
respect to
touch,
both
not
registrants
understanding
and
Caribbean
graduates.
culture things.
Driving the education sector's robust response to education.
Obviously,
delivery and
everybody in the
education
entire stream just
recovery
want to know how to
during
get
the
results
ongoing
tomorrow.
COVID-19
That's the
pandemic.
first thing to address.
Through providing pathways for the aggressive upskilling of teachers in the use of ICT to promote distance education delivery, through profuturo and other initiatives, provision of student resources for supervised or self-study, as seen through the refashioning of the Guyana Learning Channel, the only television channel dedicated to education content delivery. Creation of localized and curriculum-aligned study packages for learners and preloaded tablets for learners in the most remote pockets of our nation. Minister Manichan is both aspirational in her approach and pragmatic in her execution of her goal, or dreams with deadlines. For she has now launched the 2020-2025 education policy that aims to deliver universal secondary education through our strategic plan. Set the goal of having only trained teachers in classrooms, actioned through taking Guyana's Teacher College, Sirapota College of Education.
I feel them going to tell me no time or
both
nothing.
in response to COVID-19, as well as so that more teachers per annum can be trained.
I hope this finishing
and
11
launched
o'clock.
the GOAL program that provides 20,000 plus opportunities for online tertiary learning to all Guyanese. It is no wonder that an honorary doctorate was conferred upon her from the Lesley University in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States, in recognition of her work to support our nation's vulnerable populations. And no surprise that the Commonwealth bestowed her with the well-deserved title of Wise Woman, reserved for women of vision who have dedicated their lives to servant leadership globally. Join me in welcoming Dr. Priya Manichan to the podium to share with us this morning.
This is the Minister of Education in Guyana.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Thank you, Mrs. Juanita Walron Lewis. I'm sure you see just through her a glimpse of the many talents of how brilliant Guyana is. Welcome to Guyana, the land of many waters, the land of the giants, where you can immerse yourself and discover nature's paradise, a birder's paradise, and where you can celebrate our heritage with us, where we have holidays celebrating and observing the diversity of all our people. And so, for those of you watching, I hope you would join Dr. Wesley to discover more of Guyana, because I'm suspecting from what I heard just now that he has discovered a little bit even in these COVID times. We welcome you here to our dear country, and we look forward to hosting you in the future on visits to Guyana. Ministers of education across the region joining us here via our CXC online portal. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of CXC. Professor Paloma Mohammed Martin, Vice Chancellor of
I
the
feel you might have a
University of
question
Guyana.
and answer session.
Dr. Marcia
There is some
Potter,
hope,
Deputy Chair.
because it might be open up to the
Dr. Wayne
media.
Wesley, Registrar and CEO.
That's the only hope we have right now.
Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Guyana, and other
Otherwise, I just waste my whole morning,
members
boy.
of CXC
I'm
joining
going and get back my
online.
morning for me, boy.
Other permanent secretaries joining us online. Dr. Marcel Hudson, Chief Education Officer, Guyana, and other Chief Education Officers joining us online. Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations, CXC. CXC executive and staff, the Ministry of Education officials from Guyana, with particular recognition to the ACO exams, Mr. Amir Ali, and our Superintendent of Exams and Local Registrar, Ms. Sadia Kadir Grant, other education officials from around the region, teachers, parents, guardians, students, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by warmly congratulating the students.
I think we will reach a place in humanity with this generation where these kind of things will get
in the most trying
away.
time.
Nobody wants to come and talk on that unnecessary thing in a room and thing for no reason.
Who were out of school for over a
You
year
could
and a
just
half
post all these
after
statistics
they sat
and
for
highlight the
exams.
important
I
stuff.
suspect for many more years we will see
Already in churches, you're seeing services getting
consequences
shorter
of
and
that. You heard from Dr. Manning this morning
certain repetitive
about
things.
the large number of absentees.
If you release that, she now just
from the
finished, greet everybody.
exams. An unprecedented showing at the CXC body, and I am hoping desperately that we will not be referring to those absentees as dropouts later on, because that would be far too costly for this region. We stand here at a time when the countries of our region have collectively faced one of, if not the most, destabilizing post-independence experience. Our education systems and their concomitant processes were disrupted, and we have all struggled to identify and implement effective, innovative modes of delivery. It is imperative that we are candid about the harsh realities the pandemic has forced us to confront, and more importantly, that we learn the key lessons as a means of buttressing and improving and sustaining those improvements for our systems in the future. One of the most significant realities we must address relates to the stark socio-economic disparities within our societies. I believe it was diplomatically called hardships this morning. The digital divide and other similar equity issues were brought into sharp focus as the deep fissures between those possessing the wherewithal to adapt and those ill-equipped to undertake such adjustments became very pronounced. It is therefore vital that as we examine strategies and approaches for the advancement of education within the region, equal attention is given to addressing the structural and systemic barriers that inhibit those within our respective territories from effectively participating and benefiting. Another highly relevant area we must collectively interrogate is the extent to which we have modernized our education systems and the degree of internal flexibility that exists to enable us to withstand such external shocks. If we are honest, and we should be, the pandemic caught us at widely different levels of readiness for the unprecedented demands and new modes of education delivery. Equally notable is the fact that our systems responded to the disruptions with varying degrees of alacrity. It is vital that we create sufficient institutional, organizational, and individual capacities for crisis risk management. We should fully embrace the important role that education can play in mitigating, in the first place, the impacts of disasters and building our resilience. Our systems need to be retooled with the required safeguards against such future occurrences. The vital role our schools, especially the teachers and leaders, play in the lives of our nation's children have been reinforced and amplified. This goes well beyond the demands that were placed on parents to support the alternative teaching and learning mechanisms
I'm trying to find us
that were employed
pin
during
comments,
the
and I'm trying to
pandemic.
find a comment to pin that, not
With the
too
protracted
negative,
closure
but
of
everything is
schools,
just
we've
people
had to
just fed up.
contend with a range of related issues affecting our children, from poor diets and food insecurity to reduced physical activity and numerous related psychosocial and personal well-being issues. Many had hitherto diminished our schools to mere academic institutions and had lost sight of the significant socializing, welfare, and safety functions our institutions fulfill. Considerable emphasis must be placed on both preserving and expanding our schools' capacity to be safe havens that provide the nurturing and care our children so desperately need. Through all of this, we've been forced to find our singular solutions to these pressing but common problems. It is both an indictment and a clarion call for us as Caribbean territories to devise robust mechanisms for the timely and consistent sharing of information for our collective benefit.
When I was young, I could never understand speeches like this.
Operating within our
Like, what's the
respective
reason behind
silos has
speeches
come
like
to an
this?
end.
And as I become
And
an
our
adult,
best
I realize
practices,
it's still pointless.
innovations, strategic initiatives, and lessons learned can serve to make the Caribbean education
What's happening is you sit down and you just prepare this big long speech and you real make it nice and thing.
of
But then you realize you kind of forget as
creation
human
and
beings you're talking to. It's mostly
sustainability
students I see in
of
that
the
crowd,
CXC,
and all these
Caribbean
students like this.
Examinations Council. Very useful in this period, and I believe for the first
Student I
time
wouldn't hire if you're talking like that.
of these times, we created a Ministers of Education WhatsApp group. And so that's one of the opportunities that arose out of this horror called COVID.
She probably
And
tired.
we were able
I find her eyes
to
looking like
begin that kind of sharing of information and experiences, where once that is promoted and developed and done in a structured way, and I'm not knocking the informal communication because I believe that too is important. I can see us doing exactly as we need to do as one education body in the region, even as we recognize our unique circumstances that apply to individual territories. In essence, this event today is not merely about releasing the results of the examinations completed. It has much deeper significance. This has to mark the ushering in of a new era of collective engagement for the improvement of education across the region. And I challenge CXC to play a central role in this regard. The recently launched
Challenge CXC and wake
strategic
up
plan
Dr. Wesley, yes.
articulates a highly transformational agenda aimed at advancing economic development and growth of the region. In addition, I was heartened when I learned of the inaugural CXC Ministerial Summit planned for November this year, as we need to formalize these mechanisms and give real practical meaning to the concept of a Caribbean community in the face of such sharp and devastating challenges. It therefore means that as we revamp, retool, and recover sustainably from our recent and ongoing challenges, we must do so armed and assured of the support of sister territories. The issues of learning loss, student displacement, dropouts,
So what do you think might happen? They
curriculum
might
coverage,
maybe
malaise
around
and
9 o'clock.
anxiety
I don't know if they'll
communities
open the portal to
can be
everybody
best
or if
surmounted
they will stagger it.
within
So I hope we never
cooperative
question and answer
context.
section. And the first
This
question the
ceremony
person in the
plays
media
its
asks,
volume
Sis, raise your volume
in
as I
that
start to
regard.
talk.
And it's also a testament to the potential for significant achievements when
And
we
ask
work
them that question, like
as
how
a
you'll get
unit.
to see the results. But I mean, eventually you'll see
Arriving here was
results.
not easy, and I'm sure there were disagreements
They must be, it's not
about
that important to
in
them.
person, out of person, online only. But the experience taught us that common ground is always attainable if we place the region's children at the forefront of our priorities. I must commend the Caribbean Examinations Council for its unwavering commitment to leading educational transformation within the region. It must have been extremely challenging to effectively address both the common needs as well as those emerging from our peculiar national realities. The work done to introduce innovative approaches while responding to the ever-evolving demands at both the regional and national levels must be applauded. The reaction to COVID-19, beginning last year, by reforming what we had become accustomed to as the type and modus of exam, is a good example of CXC being responsive and responsible. The reduction of SBAs, spoken of earlier, in a way that does not take away from the child's learning experience or the skills they leave the school with, was a commendable response to a challenge by CXC. The response to our sister nation, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when the volcano Soufriere, and I hope I pronounced that properly, erupted and must have caused anxiety to student and teacher alike. It's absolutely evidences the responsiveness of COVID. The response last year, which I hope will be the only time we are required to so respond, when students were unhappy with the grades that they received, and the universal application of that response across the region.
You call this a hostage audience. They know we wouldn't turn off because we waited for something important.
That this body is the
So
servant
hear
of
me
children
talk.
they
Let us sit down there and take that.
addressing. the relatively recent inclusion of Portuguese in the curriculum to respond to this country's need, Guyana's need, because of our closeness to our neighbor Brazil, shows a level of responsiveness that we believe is commendable and signifies the nature of the body, CXC. In addition, there have been notably higher levels of communication, more reflective of the partnership arrangements we have forged. And I trust that this will be sustained. For our part, the government and people of Guyana remain committed to this highly significant regional institution. To all our students in Guyana and spread across
One thing
the
though,
region,
I like a win in English, but
commend
they're
your
real creative
efforts
with these
and
comments,
your
man.
resilience in the face of such daunting challenges over the past year and a half. You should be extremely proud of yourselves and should use this experience to propel you to even greater achievements in the future. We look forward to celebrating your stellar performances and your advancement through your various educational pathways. I was extremely encouraged by the news that CXC had been able to broker arrangements with various universities to prevent any adverse effects in light of the late release of your results. I commend all of the parents, teachers, local registrars, and officers that toiled so diligently to make this day a reality. Our Caribbean spirit is alive and well and will enable us to emerge from this year stronger and more committed to the attainment of our collective educational ideals, which we must make sure are sustainable. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you all.
Yeah, man. Let me get the time there. Let me get the organization and the results there. Always good time to put that.
Thank you, Minister Malik Chand. Honorable Minister, you are correct when you say that education plays a vital role in mitigating against the lasting effects of disaster.
All right,
As a key
chat.
feature in
Anybody
our
in the
disaster
chat
preparedness
could
efforts.
see one or two
Minister, we
points
agree
that Miss said,
that
or
this
maybe
is
you
a
could
new
summarize her
collective
speech into one
engagement
sentence.
as we revamp,
Anybody remember any
retool,
points that were
and
said?
recover sustainably. Hand in glove.
If you're from
as a
Guyana, don't put
regional
anything. I
family.
don't know if next thing Minister Education spot your
Minister, we
name.
share in your pride in our learners' efforts and commitment to their future growth endeavors. Dr. Wesley, I kindly invite you back to join the Honorable Minister at the fore for a special presentation.
What are we doing now? We giving gifts? We giving gifts? We giving gifts. Are we maybe giving gifts? We telling secrets. Whatever going on here? Oh, they had to take the gifts, but in front of the background. Right. Is that gifts? It's gifts. I had to put down the mics. Maybe get rid of the hand sanitizers, them. Right. Pictures. I will be so casual in these presentations as the Minister of Education if I come if I bounce out. Well, Alio, exam results. I hope all you study. We're going to dish it out tomorrow, sometime around 8 o'clock. But yeah, nah, don't flood the servers. So yeah, I thought it was Guyana presenting CXC with the gift, but it's the other way around. CXC bring back the mics, drag back the chairs. What's next?
And now, please prepare to be enthralled by a creative and expressive experience of
a cultural
our
item.
Guyana, as showcased through drama, dance, and the spoken word.
A cultural item.
Brought to us through the efforts of our talented Guyanese Actors Collective under the direction of Luke Edwards and scripted by Mosa Telford, the National Dance Company under the direction of Miss Vivian Daniels, lauded local poet Keon Haywood, and renowned media personality Nurie Girard.
All right, Talil, let me get entertained here. But they hit them a rough time to come out and do this entertainment. Oh God, what's this?
Mr. Farmerman, early in the morning, down by the market, see all the women with the big heavy basket coming down. Farmerman.
What is this? Oh, he's supposed to represent the sun? Silly. Water. I discovered it. Water. Yeah. What this man represents? Or they tell me what he represents. What's that in the bag? Normally when my students have thing in Ziploc bag, yeah, they seize it. When back in the school days. This is somebody from Guyana. Tell me what's going on here now. Please. Uh-huh. What's this represent here? Taking the walk now. Oil boy, this is oil. Which one of them is your favorite? Right now my favorite is the oil. Hey, I'm missing out somewhere. I'll hear this up. A little more oil in Guyana, keep it fluid.
We're growing and learning, reaching higher and higher. We're growing and learning, children of Guyana. We're growing and learning in work and in play. We're growing and learning more each day.
Guyana, land we love. Here where our forefathers discovered, struggled, and won. Guyana, the air we breathe, fresh wind at the peak of Mount Roraima, and cool like the waters of the Kaitro Falls. Demerara, Essequibo, Berbice, Pataro, Siberuni, Rupununi, Cameroon are never-ending rivers flowing like the potential, talent, and rich culture of our people. Guyana, a land enriched with gold, bauxite, and oil. Green fields where rice, cane, and everything we need to feed ourselves
You see it coming together now.
our agriculture, booming and nourishing our people, preparing our youth.
This was,
with
if it's one thing, it was
essential
entertaining.
education and technology. As we continue to build this great country,
Oh, she's technology.
Guyana, land we live for, land where we thrive, and land we love.
I didn't get the bush. No, this man with the strips, the kind of like pollution looking thing. I didn't get what he was about. A little, tell me what this man was about in the corner. Okay. Bauxite.
Golden mine for all now. And people are finished. Don't be delusional.
Two unique moments in your life. Can you feed the people like I can? Can you pull a starving nation from the earth of hunger? It's clear. Agriculture is the greatest asset to their countries, Guyana.
Bauxite, agriculture, and oil and gold. I like gold accent. Somebody asked about oil holding a car oil filter.
Gold. In the 16th century, explorers came looking for El Dorado. In the 1800s, there was news of gold discoveries, and miners began to explore. Today, gold is still one of our greatest assets. Agriculture.
Forever and ever, anytime you'll think of your results, you're going to think about this. Are you going to go to sleep tonight and there's going to be out of your mind?
The fertile soil of our great Guyana has never disappointed us. As our vegetables, fruits, grains, and nuts continue to enrich.
Was that a celery shaving on it?
Bauxite is the world's main source of aluminum. Bauxite mining began in the early 1900s. Guyana, we are blessed. Education. Education is for gaining knowledge, building a nation, and laying the foundation for future generations. Guyana, with education, we are secure. Technology. Technology helps make the world an easier place by creating mechanisms to easier solve problems. The bright eyes of our youth are filled with hope as they keep up with the world's technological advancements.
They turn off the echoing mic.
Oil is an important source of energy that fuels our homes, vehicles, and aircrafts, making it easier for us to traverse the world. Our wells are producing, and our future is brighter.
So you can have old technology, education, all science, and even art. But if you don't eat, you will die. This country.
I like goal accent.
Please, everybody knows aluminum is one of the most used minerals around the world.
Anyway, who are you voting for? We might as well vote. Make all your vote there.
No, listen. I'm the kid of the block. I can't stay back the next country.
I voting for oil and gold.
You are in a rush. Without education, none of your stories make sense. The world needs me. You
Resources. Stop struggling among yourselves. Guyana, we are one. So, are we just going to stay there? Separated from each other? Fighting each other? Claiming that we are our only resource Guyana needs? Do you see how lucky we are to have all of you in one space?
I like how she call them the resources. It's like soldiers. Power.
This is a serious photo of my country because I really love Guyana. I tried in other parts of the world, but it's here in spring. So forgetting or not, I stand the defense of my national patrimony. I'm telling y'all, we are one people, one nation, one destiny. I fed up with it, going through one ears and coming out the next. Sometimes when I study my country, man, I just get real vexed. All of we ancestors moved from home to home. So whether they steal you or they swear you, we are here now. And this land is all of we own. Guyana is like a mother trying to make her children see eye to eye. But we quick up all the foolishness. And some of readers make we mother cry. Sisters, stop spewing the language of war purporting pretentious iterations. Brothers, let me blow away all this segregation. Young people, put an end to oppression, injustice, and corruption. Yes, we are stronger together, and progress must continue. And that is why I am rooting for the merging of me and you. Must upturn the hierarchy. Unite and force others to pause. Denounce destructive rage. Encourage the upholding of our laws.
Next year, where the results ceremony will end up by.
Economy, systemic and structural ill-going increases our vulnerabilities. Some people say war. Listen, be not without agency. Guys, be in tune. Don't disengage from reality. Today, announce creative and cultural revival. Today, build bonds. It's integral to your survival. Today, dispel disunity and let mutual love continue. We in this thing together, all paddling in one canoe. Where did we get the notion of superiority? We're breathing the same air. So I am better than you, and you ain't better than me. 6 plus 4, 7 plus 3, 8 plus 2, 5 plus 5, all equals to the same end. Now I think it's time this division comes to an end. And if you don't do it, if you don't listen, watch and see what will happen to you. Hey, I can't stand if you don't live in unity. Take 2 minutes or 2 seconds and make this a study. I don't care. I hope it was well yet.
They should hold hands and sing. I mean, they might as well. I know a song had to come. You started bringing to me that song. Oh, they're gonna build up Guyana in like a puzzle piece, maybe. I don't know this song. Is that big tune? No, I haven't did anything like that.
Something daughters, hold the future in your hands. Something daughters, taking on into foreign lands. Something daughters, make sure the back and head held high. Something daughters, take our head and make it high. Something daughters,
Oh, you know this song?
you hold the future. Says up to you. Oh, do what you gotta do. One people, one nation.
Not too sure about the mix. Not too sure about the mix. I mean,
6 faces, wide open spaces, far as the eye can see. Run together, get done together, put hands together.
but if I was in that crowd, I'd be dancing. Might as well, you know.
Let's build up together in harmony, singing. Sing for the children.
If I don't see a meme on this today, I don't know what to say. Because the contrast of the music and the dancers and the onlookers just so meme-worthy. You want to talk to the TD teacher? That question, the TD teacher, what? Drum man, get on it. The people in the crowd really not having it. They make the people perform now with their mask on too. All
We are
right.
indeed greater than the sum of our parts, a timely reminder for all Guyanese and all Caribbean peoples. I now invite Dr. Wesley to provide some opening remarks before the question and answer period.
Yes, a
After
question
which,
and answer
Mr.
period.
Richard Rose, Corporate Communications Manager of the Caribbean Examinations Council.
Only after that question and answer period, I can't take no more in a turning off the stream.
Answer session. Dr. Wesley?
So, if they have anything after that question and answer session, all you gotta catch that somewhere else. Please don't take too long with these
Thank you
opening
very
remarks.
much again.
They must have audited questions too. If it is
I
audited
rise at
questions.
this time just to give some preliminary information that would be critical to the question and answer session coming up, and I know persons will be asking their own pertinent questions. But there are two important points I want to make at this time, and it is in relation to, I know persons are seeking when the results will be available to students. We have already released them to the Ministry of Education as well as the universities that students would have indicated, and for those with whom we would have developed a strong relationship for the provision of those grades. In that regard, students will have access to the release of results tomorrow evening as we seek to respond to some of the concerns.
Tomorrow evening, as the first kind of time thing, you
we are
think?
making sure that when the results are released, those concerns are addressed. So by tomorrow evening, students will have access online to their results.
That's
I
not
also
time really,
want
but
to
evening is up.
indicate that these are
When is
preliminary
evening? 6
results,
p.m.
right? And preliminary means that once we release the results to students, they have up until the end of the 15th of November, about a month, 30 days,
Yeah, send that to Josephine.
to raise any query or concern they might have in relation to their grades. So it gives us a chance to quality assure and finalize those grades. We are hoping that that is at a minimum, but we are not expecting any really. The other point I want to make is that in relation
This
to
man is always
grades,
smoke when he knows he's saying something ridiculous,
some
and he faces can't keep up
perhaps
with him brain
would
anymore.
have perhaps not understanding what ungraded means. Ungraded simply means that we have not finalized the grading for that particular subject for that student because there would be information outstanding that we are still awaiting. So it might be the non-submission of grades or the non-submission of SBAs or some clarification on what was being submitted. And so within this period, those ungraded will still be graded once that information is provided. So all is not lost when you see ungraded. It's simply an indication that the grades awarded is still, the process still requires some input from the respective schools for that subject. And so understand then that ungraded will still be addressed once the information is provided. That being said, I also want to make the very important point that we recognize that there is still a particular challenge with school-based assessment and how they're treated with, and we have been building capacity in this regard. I think it is important to mention that we are here in Guyana, that the University of Guyana is playing a very critical role in facilitating the resource capacity development for CXC, and in that regard will assist with a lot of the capacity building for teachers as well as our own ability to do the work we do at CXC. I must commend Vice Chancellor Paloma Martin for the work that she has been doing in that regard, and the team at the University of Guyana that is really working with the Caribbean Examination Council. In fact, the council is predicated on two important universities in the region, the University of Guyana and the University of the West Indies. We are working, however, with other universities across the region for candidates' benefit. We would have signed with them an understanding that allows for them to wait on the late release of results so students can still matriculate. And some of you would have been benefiting from that process. In fact, even at the University of Guyana, if you have completed our CAPE advanced associate degree, you can actually receive advanced placement at the University of Guyana. So I encourage you to take advantage of the relationship that we would have forged with the University of Guyana. So Minister, your institutions here are really helping to build capacity in CXC, and we really do appreciate it and applaud the Vice Chancellor, Professor Paloma Martin. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'll ask Mr. Rose to come forward and begin to coordinate the question and answer session for all the ideas.
I hope it's the media here and not just like, audited questions. Send me 3 questions before and we pick 3 questions that we want to answer. Hope it's freestyle questions. Rose in play now, Rose wiping down the mic. All the and thing. COVID nothing. Oh, that wipe down mic. That's her job. That's her job to wipe down the mic. She there for the wiping of the mic. Okay, I seen people on a screen in the center. They put 4 screens in the center. So I guess that is maybe the media persons for the questions, maybe.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
Didn't expect that voice from
Also,
Survey.
thank you, Ms. Benita Waldron-Lewis, Director of National Center for Educational Resource Development and Chairperson. Honorable Dr. Priya Manikchand, Minister of Education in Guyana. Ministers of Education from across the region, joining us via CXC TV Online. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council. Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana. Dr. Marcia Potter, Deputy Chair of CXC. Dr. Wayne Wesley.
Must have a faster way to say hello to everybody, man.
Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education in Ghana, and other distinguished council members joining online. Dr. Marcel Hudson, Chief Education
People
Officer,
asking for volume, but this guy just talking soft now.
Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are still morning. It is a privilege to act as moderator for the question and answer session, and we recognize that we should have some journalists online.
Yes, journalists online.
Local journalists here. One of the key areas for us is ensuring
Could be that he's so tall, the mic so far from him, but he does have a very tiny voice.
That help us in the process of sharing, informing, and educating.
He does look like
stakeholders.
Anthony Carmona.
So without further ado, what I'm going to do is open the floor here. In the first instance, if there are any burning questions from the audience here, I'll take 2 or 3 questions if necessary. And if not, we'll deal with in here first, and then the media online, the regional media online. So there's a person there. So if you want to ask a question, if you just look behind you, there's a microphone behind you, and you can use that microphone.
I clear my throat for him. Like his song, like you need to clear your throat. I clear my throat, yes.
Arena Ryan, principal of the Western Mara Secondary School.
All right, the principal.
With CXC on the release.
Sorry, body volume only.
So the education sector in Guyana. Can you, sorry to interrupt. Can you just wait a moment whilst they turn up the microphone for you?
Yes, and turn up yours too.
And in the meanwhile, for those using the mics in front of you, there's a button that says on off. You'd have to utilize that so that we can hear. Could I ask that that particular mic be activated?
Cool, my belly grumbling there if I ain't that is hunger.
Kindly let us know when it's been activated. Can you try again, sir? Because, sir, my name is Arena Ryan, principal.
Ah boy, my boy ain't doing no such a long greetings. He say protocols observed.
Let me commend CXC for the release of the examinations. Congratulations to the education sector, in particular our Honorable Minister, for the good performances of students in Guyana. Dr. Wesley has spoken at length about research and development. And I recall him saying we have to produce more Badish. And in the drama we just saw, we heard about Farmer Man. And not only Farmer Man, we heard about a little more oil in Guyana. And so my question is about research and development. I've heard about the 5-year plan, strategic plan of CXC, the digital service, etc. But my question to Dr. Wesley, what precisely is there in CXC research and development plan for the enhancement or development of the curriculum so that we can serve the interests not only in Guyana, but especially in Guyana, where our GDP and the oil sector, the booming oil sector, is on the front line. So my question to Dr. Wesley, precisely, what is in CXC's deliberation with regards to curriculum enhancement and development?
Thank you very much for that question. So we are.
So you want to know what they have in the curriculum for oil?
How we go about informing policy decision making within education. And as it relates to the curriculum,
I will summarize things.
We are actually setting up a research and development department to begin to make use of the rich data that we have within CXC on the performance of students over the period to help inform the new direction in which we should go. In setting up this research and development department, we are actually constituting what we call a research advisory committee, which will be made up of individuals regionally from, I mentioned the University of Guyana earlier, from the University of Guyana, from the University of the West Indies, right across the region, to help inform, based on the research being conducted, what areas we should be focusing on. And that will help to drive our areas of development. It was very instructive for us when we met with the University of Guyana yesterday about bioengineering, biotechnology, and the research they're doing in that regard, and how it will help now to shape the biotechnology and the bioengineering program we're developing at CXC. In fact, we're hoping that with this nexus between what CXC is doing and the research that is being conducted in the university will also inform the retirement of some of our syllabuses, because some of them are outdated and we need to be moving with the time and helping to drive. So the research will be, one, from the data that we are gleaning from how students are performing in certain areas and how that can influence what areas we move into, to what universities are doing and scholars in the areas are actually unearthing in respect of new areas for development and training. So bioengineering is one. We are looking at artificial intelligence, we are looking at robotics, and all those areas that we are developing right now to help advance curriculum
Okay, next
development.
question.
One of the things I mentioned in my presentation as well is the issue of content. So apart from the newness of the syllabus, is also, do we really need such a long syllabus for some of our syllabuses, or should we shorten that content to create what I call the critical body of knowledge that students should master in order to perform in any area? So the research will be from what we do in CXC with our data, what universities are doing, and the collective wisdom of this research advisory committee that it will help to shape and guide the area in which CXC moves. Thank you.
With regards to
Nah. Okay, make
international
this follow-up question good.
collaboration, I know some efforts were made by CXC, but my question, how is that ongoing, the international collaboration with other agencies or bodies, public businesses in foreign countries to bring credence to our qualification here in the Caribbean?
So thank you for that as well. We would have been working primarily first with the Association of Higher Education Universities, that's the current name, universities in America, the United States of America, which will help us to, with recognition for our program. We are also working with an organization called ICEP, which is the International Accreditation Body for Credentialing Acceptance. We are working with the IAEA, which is the International Association of Educational Assessments. In fact, I just participated last week in their conference talking about the challenges and how we
Somebody say,
are dealing
take
with
the
it.
man, the man,
And
ask him them kind of
tremendous
questions after.
for how we have worked on the challenges we faced within the Caribbean. So we are working with several international organizations right now and universities across
All the
world
percentage I
to
posted
ensure
some
that
of the
our
percentages
qualifications
on
are
the
still
Student Hub
accepted and
Instagram.
recognized. And that is why
So you can go and get the percentages for the
it's difficult to
subjects
just
them.
change
A lot of
something
them.
because it has global implications, and at no time we really want to put our candidates at a disadvantage when they are assessed by international bodies. So we are working with those. We are also working to align our qualification with the international qualification framework. So we have the regional qualification, but we are looking at making sure we are aligned with the
What's the
European
Instagram handle?
qualification
At
framework,
the
as well as what
underscore
obtained
student
in the
hub.
United States and other parts of the world like Australia and those places. So we are partnering with those entities through those organizations to ensure that CXC remains
So yeah, just
relevant
go on that
within the global
on
space.
Instagram and it will get you.
My final question, Leslie. Through the release, I heard the term.
Final question. This might get 3 questions.
Consistent. And I'm happy to know that even though we
This man in the MOE
are
greases,
through the
boy.
pandemic, our results are consistent. But my question to you: do you think there's a need for building of capacity or structure at CXC level, for example, employing more persons within CXC to deliver at this time during the pandemic, and also to coincide with our local body here, if there is need for building the capacity to be more efficient at CXC? Thank you.
Hiring more people, basically.
Sorry, you're correct in your observation, and actually that is how we are proceeding. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we are talking with the University of Guyana because some of that capacity can come from them in assisting CXC with the kind of efficiency that is needed with our paper development and all those things going forward. So we are expanding the pool of resource persons through that modality. We are restricted with where we can go for the pool of individuals because it is important that those persons that form part of our resource person cadre of persons.
I don't think we'll get any of the questions like what we interested in from anybody in that room. But the media people who on the screen in the center should probably ask more direct and relevant questions.
Our varying MOUs that we are signing with the respective tertiary institution is to build extra capacity in that regard so we can be a bit more efficient. Certainly, COVID-19 really stretched that particular need. to build extra capacity to move and to be flexible in our operation. So you're correct.
Thank you very much, sir. Wesley, best wishes to CXC.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, thank you for your questions. Thank you for the response, Dr. Wesley. We have another gentleman just over there. If you please state your name and any institution you're involved in or representing.
Good morning, all protocols observed. Olato Sam, Ministry of Education again. The Honorable Minister quite astutely pointed to, in our presentation, pointed to the importance of establishing some formal means
You're supposed to state who you're linked with, bro.
greater collaboration between the ministries and education systems within the region. I further specifically throw out a challenge to CXC to play a leadership role, a central leadership role in that process, after emphasizing the importance of working together and the benefits that can be accrued from saying, outside of COSAD, I don't think there's any other entity, formalized entity within the Caribbean that I can think of that has the mechanisms to facilitate this. So I'd just ask Dr. Wesley from his vantage point, please speak to that point as to how he envisions CXC playing a role in this regard.
Thank you very much for that. And the minister in our presentation made reference to one of our current initiatives to facilitate that, and that is our inaugural CXC Ministerial Summit. And this will be an annual summit of ministers to treat with assessment and educational transformation. Within our strategic plan, we spoke to the issue of leading educational transformation. And in that context, we will be galvanizing and coordinating an effort with ministers as well as the Ministry of Education in providing policy directive. Now, when we made mention of facilitating the creation of a research and development department, it's for us to also be in a position to share with ministers and ministry information that will help to drive policy decision making. We are currently working on creating a large, what we call big data project at CXC, that all our data will be digitized so that we can have access immediately to information that will help to drive decision making. In fact, the team is currently working assiduously in creating what we call an online data portal that will link all ministries together to be able to have a common platform for discussion and decision making going forward. So yes, the Ministerial Summit is one, annual Ministerial Summit will be one forum and platform on which we'll galvanize consensus, as well as our research platform to inform regional decision making on education. COSAD is important. We do participate with COSAD because it is a council of educational ministers as well in the region. So that becomes another platform on which we will execute on our mandate to lead educational transformation. So that is how CXC is actually looking right now to ensure that we get a platform to advance education, the educational agenda. The fact that we are working with universities too, and if you notice, we're working with national universities, that should be informing decision making. I know, for example, Professor Hilary Beckles, our chairman, is speaking to research coming out of the halls of the university into the practical space to inform where we're going as an organization. So those are some of the things we're looking at the Caribbean Examinations Council to help inform strategic policy decision making within the education sector of the region.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. We'll now go to Zoom and Dulong Deschamps. If you could just
bring food.
You
bring food.
Unmute his mic.
Is that going to buy something?
State the organization you're representing.
I am representing Food Caribbean. I have 4 questions. One for three for Dr. Wesley.
4 questions this man have. Prioritize the best one.
To ask this question. My first question would be, in your speech, Dr. Wesley, you mentioned that CXC had made some changes to how grades how the exams are marked, and those changes were influenced by the calls made by students in Guyana. So could you tell us what were some of the changes made and why did it take so long for CXC to make those changes? My second question would be, MAP continues to be
Watch how Dr. Wesley
topic
Green and say he didn't hear the question and then
including,
answer the question.
of management
Watch this because he asked a good
that
question.
Only 9% of students who wrote the exam this year got grade ones. So going forward, what will can CXC do with the ministries to improve those results? And my third question to you, Dr. Wesley, is Minister Manik
Man, not serious with them 4 questions.
CXC introduced Portuguese to the Guyanese curriculum. So is CXC considering offering other language, for example, Mandarin or Hindi or a West African language, or even one of the indigenous languages to the
I don't think that's
given the historic links?
that is not like a question for this forum.
Historic and economic links and the Caribbean has to do regions. And
Fourth question.
You would have mentioned that Guyana would have outperformed the region. Would you be able to tell us what other countries perform well and also what countries need to work with regards to the performance?
That's a good question, but that's probably not on her.
So thank you very much. In relation to your first question as to what changes were made, what I said in my remarks was that we would give full consideration to all the circumstances that would have been presented to us so that students are not disadvantaged. Prior to the administration of examinations, we would have provided students with topics and other areas that would assist with their preparation. During the marking, the marking and grading process, our consideration for the psychosocial impact would have come through several modalities. As I indicated, we know that the COVID-19 would have had an impact on performance, and so in the determination of the final grade, our quality assurance bodies would take that into consideration as the final determination is made with respect to the cut scores and what we do to facilitate grading during that process. Wherever we found, and this is our process of operation, wherever we found that certain questions would negatively discriminate against students, we will make the requisite adjustment so that that disadvantage would not have been transferred to the students in terms of the performance on the respective exam papers. So those are some of the considerations that would have been given during the marking and grading exercise because we understood what was happening. In situations where we recognize that data is still outstanding, even though the cutoff point for the submission of that information would have expired, we are still allowing for that information to be submitted so that students are not disadvantaged in that regard. So that's another consideration that we would have given to the marking process to ensure persons are not disenfranchised. So that is in relation to how we would have made adjustments and considerations to the marking and grading process. In relation to mathematics and the decline that we have seen, one of the things we were a bit tardy on, and we are now working assiduously to correct that position, is the presentation of subject reports to the respective schools and institutions. Some of them are available, but not in all subjects. So we want to make sure that they are available to the respective teachers so that they know the areas in which students are really underperforming. And that's just internally.
He's still there, Dr.
Okay, good. So I'm being reminded now that this year we are fully up to date with our subject reports, and that the subject report provides model answers. It provides areas of weaknesses for where students would have performed poorly, and that will help to advance the teachers' preparation and knowledge as to how to prepare students going forward. Another critical element in dealing with the low performance that we are seeing is through we are going to be using our learning institute to provide capacity building activities for teachers across the region in certain areas that will help them to perform much better. But all of this would still require a collaborative approach. CXC can facilitate those capacity building activities and provide information. But even within the ministries of education and the schools themselves, we'll also have to implement approaches that will help to enhance performance going forward. As it relates to the languages, yes, we are looking at developing other languages like Mandarin. In fact, we are in discussion with the Confucius Institute at the University of the West Indies, both in Jamaica and Barbados, on how we can strengthen the Mandarin. We are looking at other areas, Dutch as well, to facilitate a wide range of modern languages being available to the regional counterpart, to the region actually. So yes, efforts are being made in other modern languages. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so in relation to, just to pick up on the performance of Ghana, we had specifically mentioned that it's the practice of the council, whichever territory that we are doing the presentation, we make provide for specific details to the nation in relation to the performance. So that's why we would have mentioned Ghana in particular, right? Sharing the performance of Ghana. But for all the different territories, we will give further details to them. I would also want to note, particularly for Ghana, I mentioned for Cape, but I did not mention for CSEC, that for Cape it was 88% that received acceptable grades over the region's overall 87%. And 70% of the candidates who were registered from Ghana have received acceptable grades compared to the region, 68%. So in both Cape and CSEC. So in terms of the other performance in other subjects, Guyana would have seen, for example, 20 of the 33 subjects that we do overall, they would have had top performance in those. So in terms of the details for the other territories, we would provide that details in terms of each territory. For each territory. Now, one of the things I mentioned in the presentation in relation to math, we are doing some updates of the data, and that's why I paused when I reached that particular slide, because the information that would have been there would not have been as current as the situation exists now. And which is why we are stressing the point that we would have taken a different approach this year, where we would have, for the first time, not only send the information to the ministries, but have a session with the ministries, allowing them to do their initial analysis and to give us some feedback. And then we close that gap by the release of results. So that is what we're aiming to do, and that's why I mentioned about the map. So we will also give further information regarding the performance of math, but yes, you are correct. It has been an age-old problem for the region, and it is something that we are looking at on both fronts, and that's why I must even say that you can utilize the resources. You are encouraged to utilize the resources. That's on our CXC Learning Hub. It's www.cxclearninghub.org. Very important for not only our teachers to use, but to use the resources that are provided there. That will definitely help us to see some improvement also. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Manny. I know we have some local journalists here as well, so let's go to the floor. Remember to say your name and the organization you represent.
Good morning, David Papana, the Starbuck News. My first question is if CXC could provide the total number of queries for grades that was from last year and how many were changed. And if there was any different criteria used this year in the marking.
Can you repeat the second part of your question?
The second part was any different criteria used this year in the markings.
So let me go with the second one first. I'll give you the information for the first one after. So in relation to marking, remember we would have returned to the administration of examinations as we would have done prior COVID, so 2019 onwards. And the standards would have remained the same. So we did not do any changes where that is concerned. What we, however, noted is that we gave greater consideration in relation to the hardship cases. And I went in detail in that when I was doing the presentation. So that's two things to note. Standard marking practice that did not change. However, we gave greater consideration to the hardship cases. For the second one, I'll have to allow you to go to the next question and then I come back to that.
Okay, my question was, if you could give a total number of queries made by students on their grades and how many were finally changed?
That's from the last.
Yes, if you just allow, what we'll do, we'll find that information and then we'll come back to you. So I know there's someone else at the back who wanted to ask a question. Please proceed.
Good day, Vishani Raghavar from the newsroom. A few questions. Dr. Wesley, on the release of the results, you mentioned that there were some concerns that were raised by some of the ministries. Can you state what some of those concerns are? And Minister Manning-Chan, would you be able to say if Guyana is engaging CXC on any concerns at this point in time? Also, in the interest of time, Dr. Manning, you spoke about absenteeism during your presentation. Can you state to what extent the closure of schools would have impacted the absenteeism recorded? Thank you.
Yes, Guyana is engaging CXC and began doing that about 30-something hours ago about some discrepancies that we have seen. And that has, we have been resolving some of those as we went along. And so I believe at this stage, many of the issues raised have been addressed, and we are assured that CXC will not stop until they are all addressed. We are also still undergoing.
In the meanwhile,
level of the exams that they have.
Most of you all here will be doing Unit 1. And those who ask about classes,
each and every school, inclusive of
let me just
sitting with our teachers and head teachers
see.
To make sure the results that are
This is the classes that we have in the Student Help for Unit 1. Accounting, both units actually. Accounting, economics, biology, physics, chemistry, MOB. Applied maths, environmental science, communication studies, Caribbean studies, and pure maths. So if you need additional on this is what we have. And I'll put the handle back in the chat. Let's go back to the presentation.
So coming out of what obtained last year, we would have consciously made the decision on the recommendation of the Ministers of Education across the region that we have preliminary discussion with the ministry before we release the results, so that if there are any concerns that they have, it can be addressed before the release of results. So the meeting this week was to do just that, and ministries would have raised concerns, particularly where we had ungraded, which is an indication, as I pointed out earlier, that we are still awaiting additional information to make a final determination on that candidate's performance. Mainly, the other queries were somewhat operational and administrative in nature in terms of the ministries having access to information at a particular point in time. So we would have dealt with those, but as it relates to students' performance, they would have asked query, because in some subjects what you'll find there perhaps is a decline in performance, or some you would have above performance, and they are making those analysis and asking the queries, and we are resolving those issues. So we expect then that you would have, well, we are not expecting that you would have any issue, but with, of course, any process, you still have to provide an opportunity for persons to clarify anything that seems out of place of them. So yes, those were the queries we received this week, mainly on administrative issues about access as well as the ungraded subjects. There were some issue of ungraded which would have been perhaps on CXC side in addressing, and we have since addressed those and resolved those as it relates to ungraded, because what happens with the flexibility that we would have given to students, where students can bring forward SPAs from previous session to this session, chances are that in some of the ungraded case, that would have been our responsibility to ensure that we pull those SPAs from last year, as well as grades not being submitted this year that we need to get to finalize those. So those were the main areas of concern being raised by the respective ministries.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. Third one?
Maybe I might have a song coming out. I thought I would be able to, check it this morning and kind of fix it up, but
Definitely we would have to do our research.
I didn't know this was going to take
I must say,
3.5
we've
hours.
seen absenteeism as an issue for our January examinations, and we do an ongoing survey for those candidates, and we have been getting that feedback. In relation to making a correlation, though, between the absenteeism and what's happening with COVID, if that requires, and school attendance, sorry, that would require a bit more analysis. Yeah, we'll have to work with the ministries and do that research. But we would not be able to give you that information at this particular time.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any on Zoom at the moment.
No questions on Zoom. What is really going on here, boy? Ask the man the time.
Please proceed to ask a question.
I get into this like it's a football match or something.
Sorry, my question was answered already. Thank you.
How are the question answered already? You see, people doesn't put themselves in the shoes of a student, so they doesn't know really
Just so
need
that I
to be
can
asked.
follow up on your responses given. Minister, cognizant of what you said and what Dr. Wesley said, are you able to state specifically what are some of the concerns you raised, and also could you perhaps say if the occurrences of concerns about ungraded, did we have many of those?
In fact, at the risk, I would be subject to correction, but I believe that all our queries are in relation to ungraded marks, particularly in the area of mathematics, and I believe we had some in geography, but they're all ungraded.
Any more questions from the floor? Not seeing any on Zoom, so if there are no further questions, thank you so much for taking part in the question and answer session, and continue to be safe. Thank you.
Well, the best we had was tomorrow evening for the time. That's the best we get.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley, Mr. Rose, and members of the media for your contribution to this discourse. I'm certain that the listening and viewing public
Seemed like
will
they had the
be much better
questions
informed
screened.
based on your efforts here today.
So you didn't really get
It
good
is
questions.
Emerson who reminds us to cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing.
All you feel like it there? We should
and to
just
give
close up.
thanks continuously.
Why isn't
And
the chat
because
if we
of
should
all
just, bring
things
it home there?
have contributed to your
Even the
advancement,
cameraman
you should include all
having
things
problems to
in your
remain
gratitude.
still here.
Mr. Amir Ali, Assistant Chief Education Officer with responsibility for examinations, will remind us of the much we have to be thankful for today. Mr. Ali?
Love and blessings and all, yeah. I real work to do. So, if you want to follow the thanks and thing that they're going to give, it should be on the CSEC or the Ministry of Guyana.
Actually, I don't know
Ministry
what
of,
to say.
the man say you don't know what to say. Yes. The Ministry of Education for Guyana. And this man look like he's kicks, but I out. Ministry of Education page,
Permit me
Facebook.
to observe all protocols established.
We outside it. Love and blessings. Press like on the stream. Press love on it on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to keep up abreast with everything I do, you can follow me on Instagram at Quinn Springer. Or if you want to keep abreast with lessons, because a bunch of you will be jumping out into lessons in Unit 1, the Student Hub lessons. You can follow that on Instagram at _student hub, helping students win. You can ask anybody in the chat who is a member of the Student Hub is the best ever. All you kept me entertained throughout the 3.5 other hours, otherwise I wouldn't be able to make one. So thanks for that. Let's see if I could see some comments now. I outside.